Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here in the Cherokee Batting Range podcast studio getting ready to record episode number 155. Before we get into the topic today, which is going to be the secondary play, the recognizing the what-if type plays, let's talk about our sponsors. First, the Anderson Bat Company. Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount. It's a great way for you to save a little bit of money on a great bat and also help support Everything Fast Pitch at the same time. Now let's talk about patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. We want to welcome our two newest patrons, Joe Kaiser and Tony Webb. Thank you guys very much. We really do appreciate your support. As always, we appreciate all of our patrons, but we definitely want to continue to encourage people to come on board and go to patreon.com. The good news is that the numbers of patrons has gone up here in this last 6 weeks or so, which keeps us enthusiastic and optimistic that we're going to get there. But we need to see just as many people in the next 6 weeks as we got in the last 6 weeks to come on board if we want to keep this thing moving and keep it growing. So go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. We're talking about 3 different levels of monthly support, and it would go a long way towards keeping the podcasts alive.
No, I was going to say, Tori, that's exciting when we get a little bit of help on that end, and it all counts. Every one of you count that are able to get on board with us.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
And if you do see value in what we're doing, if we're being helpful to you, if it's something that you see some benefit in, do what you can to help us keep this thing moving forward. Don and I would love getting together. The 3 of us, get to catch up and chit chat a little bit and talk about softball, and it's a fun thing to do. So we want to keep it rolling. Don, this week's topic is teaching your players to understand and see and start to plan for and recognize the secondary play, the what-if play. And so just to kind of give our listeners a little bit of an idea, one of the things that you start to see with players, even at some very young ages, that they start to be able to think about when there's no runners on base, well, ground ball goes to first, fly ball goes to second, those kinds of things. And they start to think about it in a very fundamental, very basic way of the most basic opportunity, the most basic likelihood of what's going to happen when this ball gets hit. And that's a great place to start. But as we get older, as the players get better, as their level of play increases and improves, what we're hoping is that they start to get beyond that most basic play and start to think about the what-if kinds of plays, the oh-no kinds of plays that can happen. And so, that routine ground ball that you were thinking should go to first, well, is it still a routine ground ball if it takes a bad hop and I field it off my chest? Is it still a routine ground ball if I go deep in the hole and make a diving stop? Those kinds of things, which can change that plan that I had in my head when I was thinking about, well, ground ball should go to 1.
Right. No. As you're saying that, Tori, I'm seeing a nobody on base, ground ball to shortstop. The ball gets thrown away. And now we've got to turn and get the ball and make a play at second. So center field could be in a backup role there, where otherwise, moving towards the ball towards shortstop is good, but
Right.
But that would be the secondary thing that they would have to be responsible for.
Right. Well, and when we think about it, the primary part of that, so let's say it's a ground ball to the shortstop, it takes a bad hop and it hits her in the chest. She rears back and she just chucks it, throws it wide of the bag, and there's no play at first base. Well, now hopefully our catcher and right fielder did their jobs. They're down there backing up the play. So for them, they're thinking about maybe throwing that girl out at second. Well, that also means my center fielder, who started off, backing up the potential ground ball to the shortstop, now has to be in a position to back up a potential throw to second base from wherever the catcher or right fielder are picking it up over by the fence. The left fielder went from, moving to, back up the ground ball to the shortstop to now she's got to think about, well, where's the next most likely play? If it's not at second, well, maybe I need to be backing up third. So there's all kinds of different
what if
scenarios that can develop. And to me, the thing that always separates the good teams from the very good teams from the great teams is that ability to think about the secondary play, the what if, the high hopper, how does that change things? The blooper, how does that change things? The speed of the runner, how does that change things? And all those different factors can make a big difference in what my play would end up being. And so I think for all of our players, if we want them to continue to grow, we as coaches have got to start to teach and especially expose them to those kinds of situations. So we need to come up with the much more challenging scenarios in practice. We need to be simulating much more challenging things so that our players start to see the possibilities and start to think about the ways that they can continue to impact the game positively, even if something unusual does happen.
No, I like that idea, and you kind of have to do it and feel it in practice to really truly get it. And we're going to be going into the colder months, and you've talked about having a reduced size infield and shifting and moving to some of those responsibilities in a smaller space where it's not as tiring to do it a number of times. And so I like when in the past we've talked about that in the smaller area that's available, or just making it a smaller area so that we can do it more efficiently.
Right. And I think that one of the things that's where experience is important, for younger players, and again, I think this might be something that the depth of the discussion and the depth of expectation is going to change drastically depending upon the age of the players. Yeah. If you're coaching very young players, 8 under, 10 and under, that first year rec league, first year of coach pitch type situations, if we can get those kids to be thinking about making the fundamental play, I think we've accomplished a lot.
We got to win.
Yeah. So if we've got a 10 and under team and every one of those kids knows what their job is on the routine play, the fundamental play that's most likely to happen. If we can get to where everybody's good at that, then we can start to increase the range, increase the scope of what we're going to be asking them to learn. And then we start to get into more and more complex ideas as they get older and they're capable of handling it. I don't think if you've got a really young team, talking about the third possibility of what could happen in a situation probably is going to be very productive because it's going to overwhelm them. But if you've got a player who's a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, and she understands, ground ball should go to first. But in her mind, she's already thinking about, but if it's a high hopper, then what changes? Hitter is super fast. If I get a 3 hopper and that really fast girl, what does that change? And does it still allow me to make that play over to first base? If I dive for a ball, what does that mean for can I make a play? And, sometimes the things that they recognize from thinking through those other options is that it kind of prepares them mentally. So when something like that happens, they've already, rehearsed it in their mind. They've already planned it out in their mind. So if it's a super fast runner, she hits a ball deep in the hole to me at shortstop and I dive and stop it, I'm not going to pop up on my knees and just chuck the ball across the infield and thinking I'm going to throw her out because I've already planned it out in my head. I know she's way too fast for me to.
She's the quickest kid. Yeah.
For me to have dove into the 5-6 hole, to be going that far away from the play and then throw from my knees and throw her out is not going to happen.
Only something bad's going to happen now.
So by thinking through to that next level, we've still made a great play. We still have done a really good job, but we've also been aware enough to not turn that good job into a potential problem.
And just as you're saying that, the same goes if that might be one of their less quick kids.
Right.
That might be a time for me to try that.
Right. And that's perfect. That's a perfect example, Don. So then, that same exact situation, but it's the slowest kid on the other team. I can dive deep in the hole, throw from my knees, throw the one hop, throw across the infield, and still have a chance to make the play.
But only if I'm evaluating what's going on.
Right.
In the next level.
And hopefully what's happening too is all of my other teammates are thinking about that same possibility. If my right fielder doesn't back up first base because she sees me dive in the hole and thinks, well, she's never going to throw it. All of a sudden I throw it.
That's the time.
And the right fielder standing in right field watching it instead of backing up first base, then we could, again, have potential problems. So I think the whole what if idea, the thinking about it that way goes a long way. Another example is if you're in the outfield, fly ball goes 2. Well, fly ball goes 2, but what if it's a sinking line drive? Is this a ball I should dive for? Is this a ball I should play safe?
What's the score? Where are we at in the game?
All those different kinds of things. So again, the what if possibilities are going to be so immense, so many options that once we start to think along those lines, it's just going to really help our players. And so for us as coaches, we've got to give them the experience, share with them our knowledge and our understanding, and just to kind of put this in perspective, working with my college teams, I had 5 or 6 years where we had teams that were really good at this, that really
They got it.
understood
They
the what ifs, we had a different word, a different term than what if. It was something, but those kinds of plays and how to make the best of that something play or how to minimize the damage when it happened was a big thing that those teams were really good at, which set them up for much more success. And I would be willing to bet that of the 10 best teams I've ever coached, those 5 or 6 years are definitely in that group of the best teams ever.
No, and that's with the older kids. It's a joy when they can do that just instinctively because of their experience. But
Right.
What do you think about along the way with younger kids, the 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids?
I think we keep adding to the Rolodex.
And can we at those points in the game kind of say, hey, now this is that point, and kind of just remind them that, hey, the game's on the line right here. If we don't get this, this is a time for us to be diving, or this is a time for us to be more guarded. Is that something we can share?
No, I think it definitely is. And again, it's going to all come back to
do some of that for them.
Right. And it's going to come back to your philosophy as a coach too. If
all or nothing. Or...
Right. Again, it's important that you're giving your kids the experience with it and you sharing with them as much knowledge as you can. And I think your point down about as it's unfolding, if it's the third inning and the score is 1-0, it's a little bit different than the bottom of the seventh and the score is 1-0.
This is the time that we
right.
all or nothing.
Just being able to have those conversations along the way is going to go a long way towards the player starting to understand, oh, wait a second, it's not the same all the time. It's not going to always be the routine play that I think about in my mind. And again, when we talk about communication, it's always funny to me because when I do a rent-a-coach, I try to teach teams to communicate better. And we'll start off with the most fundamental thing. And the thing that's really sad to me is how many teams I've worked with that like the shortstop really doesn't think about the ground ball should go to first before the ball gets pitched. She hasn't even really gotten to that point yet of thinking about the most fundamental play. And so in those situations, if I can get a team to get, the infielders all, hey, ground ball goes 1, outfielders, hey, ground ball goes 2, to start with just to kind of break the ice, I feel like I've accomplished something because it's shocking to me how many teams just take for granted that these kids are going to know what they're supposed to do with the ball.
Right.
And I've watched, some really good teams on TV, lose games in the College World Series and things like that.
That's the shocking one.
Yeah, the Oklahoma State thing where, the girl tried to do everything right, but something went wrong, and that what if thing turned into winning a game in the College World Series to losing a game in the College World Series, and that's one of the best teams in the country.
And that's at the end.
Right. It's just one of those clear examples that we can't do too much of this. We have to do as much as we can. And I think to your point, Don, just be appropriate as the kids age up and as they get older and more experienced. Let's keep adding in more and more. And if you have the good fortune of being able to stay with a bunch of kids for a while, for a few years, back to back, then you can start to see that progression. And hopefully they get to the point where the what if play is just as routine as the routine play.
Yeah, no, I think that is exciting, and we'll probably talk about this down the road at some point, but I think there's so much value in teams sticking together so that we can, nurture some of this mental game IQ stuff over time. Because when the kids are interchanging every year and, we talk about, groups of kids leaving and teams merging together, we have to start back over so much that I don't think we really progress like we could if we could keep them together. So.
Yeah, and because practice is hard enough to come by, if we have to keep going back to square one, it's kind of nice to just be able to build on a quick review of cutoffs instead of having to go get the chalkboard out and draw all the pictures. A quick review of relays instead of having to start all over. A quick review of some of those things would be a kind of a refreshing thing. It's not the world we live in, unfortunately.
We're gonna work on that.
Yeah. All right, so that's gonna wrap up episode 155. Again, make sure you check out Anderson Bat Company. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch if you can help us out, become a patron. Coach Don and I would really appreciate the support. We need to keep the momentum rolling. We need to keep adding patrons because we're still a ways from being out of the woods on this thing. Please make sure you go to fastpitchprep.com. That's where you can order your Square Cuts training discs and also have access to the YouTube channel and the blogs. Tons of great information there. Make sure you reach out to us at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com with suggestions for topics and Player of the Week nominations and all that other kind of good stuff. So for Coach Don McKinley and our producer Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey saying thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.